Hi everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. So it is the 8th of December, day 8 of Dephemerember, hosted by 49 Dragonflies and Louisa Heinzel. So you can find more details in my description box about this fun collaboration. So we have Snippets and Grandma's Buttons today. And oh, do I have grandma's buttons. I've got my grandma's buttons. I've got your grandma's buttons. I've got buttons. I am like feverishly like attracted to the button jars in the thrift stores, but I do tend to walk away from them these days because I already have them. So I got thinking about this, and I think like we've done snippet rolls in Dephemerember before. I've certainly done them many times. I think we've kind of sewn buttons. So I thought about, you know, I was going to guide you through making a snippet roll today, and then, you know, doing the kind of logical thing of like stitching buttons and showing how you can make kind of clustery snippety bits. But then I thought more about like the word snippets and just generally what I could do. Oh, this, by the way, is my snippet roll I've made. So if you're interested in this, it's just like my scrap fabrics, and I put them in strips and I lay them down together. I add lace, I'll add book spine, I'll add, you know, hunks of thread, yarn. This is a whole book spine here, and I just kind of zigzag down the whole thing, and then I end up with just this gorgeous snippet roll, you know, for using for tabs and all sorts of things. But that's not what we're doing today. So in the realm of grandma's buttons, I find at one of my local MCC thrift stores, this was $3. They organize them by color, and I don't know if that affects your brain like it affects my brain, but when things are organized by color, they instantaneously become like 10 times more valuable to me as artistic materials. So I picked them up. I have a bag of these like in all different colors, even though I have a truckload of buttons. So yeah, we're going to go green today. And then I have this scrap of paper. This is Vine and Velvet Craftsmith paper. And I don't typically use these great big pages for anything. So my thought process here is I want to work in a green theme today. So I'm going to cover this, and we're going to do something different. But first I need to harvest my scraps for a whole bunch of green. I want to work in a green theme. I love like this, and I feel kind of like maybe I'll let it peek through. We'll see. But first let me get my scraps together, and then we'll work on this. All right, so we have lots of scraps, and you know, if it had green in it, like this has more pink than green, but most of this is super green, but I want a little bit of, you know, something else to kind of mix this up. I also grabbed the second sheet of this because there's 2 of these in the pack. So I think what we're going to do first is just like literally a collage board, or 2 collage boards. I'll make 2 because we're mass making, right? And I think this should go pretty quickly as a project to begin with. So let's just start maybe. What do we like more? I think the greenery. So stick this down. And do we want to keep a little of that maybe? I think so. A little bit. It's very nice. And then this is some cabbage dye paper, which is kind of a bluey green, but I really like it. And it's a nice scrap. I am doing all things avocado paper dyeing today. That's what's brewing in my kitchen today, avocado paper. But I have to make more cabbage dye paper soon too. I'm running out of all the yummy paper. Let's start here, and I can figure out if I want to keep any of that green. This is just a bookstore, a chapter's receipt, and it's green because they use this like green paper instead of that nasty carbon paper that has like carcinogenic junk in it. Not good. Not good. Okay, let's trim this down to just the green. Get rid of all that white. Most of it anyhow. And we'll go here with this. Probably cover a bit of this receipt too. I don't want the whole thing. I just kind of want a hint of it. Layer that like that. So are you enjoying Dephemerember so far? I am. I'm having fun watching some new channels and just generally having fun. It's almost the holidays, so I'm starting to feel kind of a little more relaxed. Looking very forward to some time off. Greatly needed time off with the fam. Some nice painty paper. I think it's from either Mary Ellen or Shell. One of the two of my lovely friends. Let's cut this out. Okay. I've spent a good amount of the day preparing materials, and I have a little bit more to do because my beaver scouts that I work with. We're going to be making Santa boxes for seniors in our neighborhood, and so I've gathered all sorts of goodies, and I just got to get all the stuff for them to make, like the cards and all of that. But we're going to have a good time tomorrow, just talking about people in the community, and it's going to be nice. And I'm very lucky because I have an awesome, another scouter who, she helps me so much. She's a teacher, and she is so good at all of this, and so I think her and I mesh really well because I was a homeschooler, and I'm an artist, and she's a teacher and just an overall cool person, and I like working with her on these things because we both think very similarly and practically, for what we're going to need to do for the kids and that kind of thing. So it's really nice. If you're looking to have an opportunity to mentor kids and also to make great adult friendships, I highly recommend scouting because it's a nice blend of the both. Okay, so that one is looking good, I think. Take a little bit of maybe this down here, or maybe something a little different. This, yeah, we'll just kind of cut it in half. Gets a little bit of leftovers from the junk journal studio. Christmas projects that I've worked on. Okay, yeah, I think I'm good with that one. So let's move on to the next one. We'll set this one over here maybe. On my way for a moment. Okay. I definitely want to use this. It's so nice. Also, I'm happy to use up some scraps. My scraps are still overflowing a little bit. And it's getting to be the end of the year when I do a scrap dump. So I take 50% of my scraps and I dump them out into the recycle bin because it's just a way of creating renewal and not having everything in my studio forever. I toyed with the idea of doing scrap swaps or something, but I'm that might just, kind of create some more scraps. It's probably not going to solve the problem. Okay. What else do we have here? Oh yeah, we have a Canadian Tire 5 cents bill. For those of you not familiar, Canadian Tire is a Canadian hardware and automotive and sports kind of store. And you can actually use these. People save them up and spend them. A very old kind of coupon. I was obsessed with them when I was a kid because it was like a way to save a few dollars and get something at Canadian Tire. I remember getting a bell for my bike when I was a kid using the Canadian Tire money. Okay. Helping my daughter today finish up her project for school. She's doing this really interesting project where the kids have to create an animal that is based on being a mashup of other animals, and they've got to learn some facts about each of the animals and then do an oral presentation on like basically how their animal evolved and adapted based on the skills and the, you know, the life, the predators, the habitats, all of the other animals they chose. So my daughter chose a worm, a spider, a rabbit, and a hedgehog. And so she mashed them all up, thought about their various behaviors, and then I helped her to, she did her sketch, and I helped her to do her armature, her wire armature, because it was her first time working with wire, and you know, it can be a little bit pokey, but it's a really nice way to create like a spine for something you want to sculpt. And I got her some Sculpey, and we created sort of like, it's a head. Well, she created a head with bunny ears and big bunny teeth, and then on the head there's 30 eyes because it's a spider, but it's, you know, multiple animals. So she's thinking about the many eyes that some spiders have, and then kind of like mixing that up with, you know, how other animals would look. So there's 3 kinds of eyes, 3 lines of 10 eyes, and it's like the bunny is white with black spots. And I used I was trying to think, how do we create like hedgehog spines that aren't dangerous, like to, you know, poke people? So I thought a hairbrush. So we went to the dollar store and I got her a hairbrush, and we pulled the like the core of the hairbrush out, so you know, the foam backing of the spines. And so once the Sculpey had been fully baked and dried, I glued that on the back and then tied it on with like embroidery floss, you know, so that it would stay on. And then she painted over the whole thing in brown paint, so like it just looks like spines. It doesn't look like a hairbrush anymore. And it has 6 legs because it's not full spider. And then around the neck, we wrapped it in this white kind of floofy yarn, so the bunny would have a little bit of a fur element. And the back of it is like a spider's abdomen, and that's been painted black. And around the midsection, there's like this glistening pinky brown worm body. And that's pretty fun. And we drew the segmentation lines on the worm. Yeah, it was kind of a wild project. So it's all done and waiting for tomorrow for her presentation. So yeah, I think she's feeling pretty good about it. She's at that age where kids, like, they get a little nervous about things like this, public speaking, and you know, all the challenges that kids have when they're doing new things. And so I told her, you know, they had to like write down all these facts and stuff. So I helped her with that part of it, but I said to her, like, most importantly, it's not about writing down the facts, it's about what you know in your head, like the story that you're going to tell. So when you're presenting, you know, you have to have a concept of your story about your animal, right? Your adaptation of this blend of animals, so that you can be prepared, because kids are going to ask you questions that have nothing to do with the facts that you've documented. Like, you know, maybe you talked about their predators, their shelter, their defenses, their habitat, but then think about the imagination of kids. One of them is going to say to you, well, how would your animal handle it if a shark jumped out of the water and tried to bite it? And then you've got to think about, how would it protect itself? Would it use the hedgehog spines and it would roll up in a ball? Or would it bite with those big bungy teeth? Or would it sting with its, you know, its spider abdomen? So just kind of talked about that concept a little bit. And I think she's feeling like she's going to be able to take it on. So here we go. We've got the 2 collage boards, right? So I need to get some thread. Do I have any here? I do have some. This kind of golden color might be kind of nice. Let's use this up because I was using it for binding the other day for my latest journal, actually. I bound the signatures of a house for every bird with this thread. So we're just going to like keep the whole thing attached, but attach it with a nice bit there. And then I think the easiest way to get into this bag is to just kind of cut the top because it's been taped up. Now I'm not going to use shaft beads because they create too much bulk. Those I like to break the shafts off and glue them down because it's just easier to use them that way, then they're not so bulky. So I'm going to just collect some beads that don't have shafts, or not beads, but boutons. So that we can get going on Grandma's buttons here. Lots of good ones. This is a nice bunch of greens. Lots of these shaft buttons. That one's got a little shaft. I sort of knew we were going to run into a bunch of buttons with shafts, but I thought it's okay. I'm going to do this exercise anyhow. All right, so that should give me a good start. So then what I'm thinking, maybe I will break a length of this off, but make it long enough so you don't have to keep rethreading. So maybe I'll set one of these aside so it's not jarring to your eyes on what I'm doing. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to tear this whole piece up, but it's going to be kind of based on like where I lay down buttons. So I'll take this nice stripy one, I think, and I'll put it here. And I'm just going to poke 1, 2, 3, 4 holes to go through all 4 buttonholes so that I can see from the back where they are. So the one thing about the 4 button, actually no, I'm going to go from the back to the front. No, the front to the back. The one nice thing about the 4 button or 4 hole buttons is you can make that nice X pattern, you know, across. So I'm going to keep the thread out front and then pull this through. And we'll go through again in the same way to get that nice X. And then use this one to go back through again. And what I'm looking to do is get the X, but then also to bring both of the strings back to the front so that I can create a knot. Because I'm not going to sew these like I would traditionally onto a garment. I'm just going to use just enough thread to get a nice pattern and then do a double knot here. 1 and 2. And then you can decide how long you want to leave those. So then we'll do another button here with this. Okay. Go in the front. Always go in the front to get that string. And then you can poke the other hole so you can see where to go in the back. Go back through. And this is just a 2-hole button. So I only have to do that pretty quick. 1 and 2. And then we'll snip there. So why don't I just keep going? I'm going to kind of like arrange these around in different places to then allow myself to tear these out and create all these different buttony snippets. So I'll tell you what, I'll show you how I do it, but I'll do it on high speed so you don't have to watch me literally sew like 30 buttons onto paper and go, Cindy, what are you doing to us? Okay, so you will see me in a few minutes. Okay, so what I'm noticing is in order to get more in the center of the sheet, I think it will be easier to do the tearing away of the clusters we've already, like the snippets we've already created. So I'm going to do that this way. So there's one. And just kind of guide carefully in between. I'm trying to decide if I think I want to stitch around on these a little bit. I sort of suspect I do. Oops, I need to reattach some of the scrapbook paper there, just because it's scrapbook paper to scrapbook paper, and I think it was like, this is too thick. Which is probably arguably another reason I'll want to go around these. Okay. You can obviously cut them too, but I like the torn edges. You know, I like to do things the hard way. There we go. And then this one. Cool. All right. Now I can continue. I'll leave those and I'll keep going. Alright, so I've stitched all the way around with these, so it's time to tear these ones out. Okay, again with a little bit of glue. Just to replace that there. Good. And then the next one. Perfect. Fun. That one is relatively simple. Just tear right across. Here. These would also be good not just for like clusters and stuff, but also like pockets. Very fun. And I think, you know, this is taking a little more time than I expected, so I might actually just do the one page. And I'll keep the other, you know, collage board for collage board things, obviously. But I gotta do other things today too. I can't just play here all day as much as I would love to. We need more buttons. I think we'll need to do 2 more. So there's 3 for one and 1, 2, 3 for the other. Let's do 6 more buttons. And then I will pack all these back up. I'm going to have to do a green shank button project now to like find a use for all these shank buttons. But I mean, like I said, you can just remove the shank off the back and then they will glue down beautifully with Fabri-Tac or 3-in-1 glue. Easy peasy, but they're also really great. I love using them on book spine dangles, because like who doesn't like a bunch of vintage buttons on their spine? It's so nice. They sound nice, they look nice, they're just nice in general. This one might have holes that are ever so slightly too small. Let me double check. Where did I put my needle? Here it is. We just got to check if the end of the needle can fit through the hole. Yeah, it can. Okay. Alright, so let's do the last couple together here. Pokey, pokey. I gave up on the 4-hole patterning. I'm just going to tie them on, because they still look just as nice, honestly. 1 and 2. Okay. So tell me about are you one of the people who had a grandma who had a button box? I did. My grandmother was a button box grandma, and she kept a tin, an old cookie tin, like a lot of grandmas did, you know, from those like little shortbread cookies kind of thing. But even I think more special to me in my memory of my grandmother is her closet, where she would keep she had 10 children, and she would keep all of their, I have to do this one differently because the hole broke. She would keep all of the holiday cards that she ever got from her 10 children and her myriad of grandchildren, like a million grandchildren. And she would put them in a box in the bottom of her closet, and she would let me make like scrapbooks, like glue books essentially with them. And I still remember that. It gave me kind of my love of like having a sticker book and like making my own like cards and things like that. It was a lot of fun. So maybe that's one of the things that fueled my creative spark. That might be it. Let's pull that one off, and then we've got this one. But I think, you know, we often don't think about how so many things in our childhood, they really can spark a big part of who we are. And sometimes it feels like it, you know, nothing at all. It could just be one tiny little memory, like, that can end up being like the reason that you look into something as like a career or as like a lifelong hobby, or, you know, something that you look for in a person. It's kind of interesting. I think, you know, you realize just what a formidable time childhood is. I know for me that's true. I think it's maybe a very conscientious kind of parent. I try to realize as often as possible that the very small moments can matter a whole lot. Okay, 1 and 2. I love these little teal buttons, or aqua, I guess, buttons. They have this cute little like pattern around the edge. They're absolutely why I bought this button bag, because they were too cute. Okay, so that's the end of the thread. So I'm just going to call that one done. I'm not going to bother to keep on going. And now I think what I'll do is I'm going to add some stitching around these, because I just think that's going to amp it up a little bit. So why don't I tidy a little here, and then I'll go on over to the sewing machine. I'll stitch around all of our clustery bits here. Oh, I had more buttons over here. See, they multiplied. Did you see that? They just literally multiplied in front of our eyes. And I'll put these back and we'll stitch around these, and I'll come back and we'll look at them. Okay, we're all stitched around. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 of these fun clusters. I'm totally like happy to make this kind of snippet. It's a different kind of snippet than I've made before. So I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, which should be tomorrow, from Word Dephemerember, thank you for joining me, and don't forget to check out Louisa Heinzel and Barbara over at 49 Dragonflies, the hosts of this fun Dephemerember challenge, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now.